All right, welcome to today's lecture. We're covering when to build an MVP versus a full application. So often I have clients come to me who have this great new idea for a custom software application. And what I really wanted to cover was this idea of the MVP, which stands for minimum viable product. We've already gone over what an MVP is. If you missed that lecture, make sure you go back and watch that one. Today, I really want to cover the topic of when you should build an MVP versus moving on to actually building a full application. All right, so that's what we're going to cover. I hope this is helpful, especially for anyone who has this new idea of like, some sort of application they want to build. This can really help you save a lot of time and resources by asking yourself these questions to validate, if you should be actually building an application or if you need to just start with an MVP. Okay. Just some openers. So understanding whether you need an MVP or a custom application is one of the most important decisions you'll make early in a product's life. So let's talk about the difference. So the difference comes down to what you're trying to prove. All right. So let's just start at a high level. When should you build an MVP? All right. You should build an MVP when you're trying to validate an idea. All right. That's our biggest takeaway there. When you think MVP, think about validate. All right. An MVP should be used when the idea is a new or is unproven. You're unsure if users actually want it. You need to test demand before investing heavily. You want real feedback from real users. You're validating price, behavior, or usage. All right. The goal of an MVP is not to build the final product, is to confirm that the product should exist at all. And that's really the biggest takeaway here. I really want to go back over this again. It is to confirm whether that product should exist at all. Now, we're about to go into two scenarios, scenario A and scenario B. All right, scenario A is going to be where we decide to build an MVP, and scenario B is where we're going to basically be building a prototype. All right. But again, I just want to take a step back because again, a lot of my clients come to me because they have this new app idea, right? They have this new software idea. And the key here is should this product exist? And I think that the pitfall that I see a lot of my clients kind of fall into is because they think that this is a really great idea, that it should go to the market, right? When in reality, just like any other product, right? We need to treat software just like any other product, right? You need to test the market first. You need to validate the fact that there is actually demand for this product. You need to validate that your pricing model will work for this product, and you need to get real user feedback. So I really wanted to like highlight this, that the real question that you're trying to answer with an MVP is, should this product exist? So before you invest a lot of time and resources actually building this product, this is an opportunity for you to validate whether this product should even exist. All right. I just want to pause there and really make sure we soak this in for a second because that's really important. I've seen this happen a lot where we don't validate the product and then you invest a lot of time and resources into building this product and then the product never sells because we didn't validate it. Okay, awesome. Okay, so let's go into scenario A where we are recommending that we start with an AVP. So here's the scenario. All right. A client in the real estate space has an idea for a new platform that allows users to instantly book a call with a real estate agent based on location and property type. Did everybody get that? So let's say a client comes to me, all right, they're in the real estate space and they say, hey, Mike, I have this new, I want to build this new platform. All right. And this new platform is going to be, it's going to allow users to instantly book a call with a real estate agent. Right. So it takes note of your location, it takes note of your property type, and you're able to instantly book a consultation with an agent. And they think that this is a revolutionary idea. They think, wow, I was thinking about this as I was walking and I noticed blah, 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 right? They come to me with this idea. All right. So let's go over what they believe. All right. So they believe there's a market gap. They believe users want fast access to agents, and they believe people would pay for instant consultations. All right. Notice there's belief there, right? Right. We haven't validated this yet. This is an idea. And I really want to go over this again. So this is what this person believes these things. So again, they believe there's a gap in the market. They believe in some way that this is a problem in the market and users want it solved. They believe that users truly want fast access to agents. And they also believe that users are willing to pay for instant consultations. All right. Let's talk about what they don't know. They don't know if users will actually book calls. They don't know if the problem is painful enough. They don't know if the pricing model works. And they don't know if the workflow makes sense. I really want to make sure we like really, really pay attention to this. We don't know if this problem is painful enough, right? Like we don't know that users feel as though this is a big enough problem that they're willing to invest in it. Who's to say that users feel as though that they want instant access to a real estate agent, right? Who's to say? Who's to say that they're willing to pay for that? Who's to say they're not just satisfied with being able to go to an open house or to simply be able to call the real estate agent? Who says that that's a big enough problem for them that they want instant access to a real estate agent? All right. Who's to say that the pricing model that the individual who came to me has in mind is the right pricing model? Right? Let's say that they want to charge, 30 to $100 per consultation. Who's to say that the end user is willing to pay that price for an instant consultation with a real estate agent? And then let's talk about workflow. All right. The person that came to me, my client, could have a particular workflow in mind. Let's say that the workflow they have in mind is, you visit a property, you're able to, go to this website, you're able to type in the address of the property, and you are matched with, or you answer some questions, and then you're matched with a real estate agent. Who's to say that users find value in that particular workflow and there's not a more preferred way, a more preferred workflow, right? We don't know any of that yet. Okay, that's the emphasis of the information we do not know. Okay, let's talk about why this is the perfect use case for an MVP. All right. In this scenario, right, an MVP would test whether users take action. Okay. It would validate demand. It would collect real feedback. It would reduce risks before building a full platform. All right. Let's go back over that in a little bit more detail, right? So this MVP is going to test whether users take action. All right. So once we build an MVP, right, the most minimal viable product, right? The minimal version to test this out. This will actually give us like hard evidence on whether users actually take action. All right, so we're offering this MVP to the market. Do we actually see users use this product? All right, here's another thing that's really important. I really want you guys to hear this point. It will validate demand. All right. Again, I want you guys to think about software, the product, just like you would think about any other product. I think because we're in this space of software that we don't need to treat it like it's another product that needs to be tested. You really need to validate demand. All right. So that's what that MVP is going to do. It's going to validate whether there's actually demand for this product. All right. Collect real feedback. All right. So your MVP, right, will allow you to collect feedback from the user. It's the UX design, it's the workflow, is the pricing model, are those things in alignment? All right. And then the most important thing is going to reduce risk before building a full platform, right? Before you pour lots and lots of resources into building out a full platform, this is going to allow you to reduce risk. All right. So an analogy that I used in another lecture was if we were to compare this to, let's say you were thinking about, let's take this away from being software for a second. Let's change the industry. Let's say you are in the media space, right? And there's this new show that you guys want to launch. What do they typically do in that space? They typically launch a like a pilot version, right? You guys with me? They usually launch some sort of pilot project, and that's meant to do the exact same thing as an MVP. It's meant to test and validate, to get feedback before they pour lots of resources into producing a full project. So you can think of an MVP in our space as the same as a pilot project in the media space. And again, so that you can help like wrap your brain around it. So like why would someone launch a pilot project before, investing the money to produce a full season of the show? It's to validate, it's to test the market. And we should treat software the exact same way. All right, cool. I hope that helped you guys better understand why this is the perfect use case. All right, let's just quickly go over what the MVP might include. I see that question kind of get asked a lot too. Like, okay, I understand that we should build an MVP. So what should be included in this MVP? All right, let's like sticking with this scenario. Right, let's go over what this MVP might include. So a simple landing page, a booking flow, basic intake questions, and then a manual or semi-automated scheduling. All right, so no complex backend, no advanced automation, just enough to prove the concept works. And that's really your takeaway here, just enough to prove the concept works. Okay, so you have a simple landing page that describes the what this product should do, right? So, you know, insert some nicely marketed things that hits at the pain points of this product, about being able to have instant access to, a real estate agent, to be able to cut through the noise and information that's on the web, to get your questions answered instantly, to speed up the process of actually being able to close on a property. So all the marketing things, right, that talks about how this product solves a problem. All right, simple landing page that has that information. And then you have a booking workflow, right? Simple booking workflow. So then you have this simple button that says, book a consultation with an agent or, get started. And you're able to just go through the most basic possible booking workflow of this. All right. And then some basic intake questions. So something simple like perhaps their first name and their email address and maybe their phone number, when they're looking to buy, so you can gauge how serious they are. Like, are you looking to buy now, or are you looking to buy in the next 30 days, the next 6 months, etc., just so you can gauge how, like, where the buyer is. Maybe you add some basic questions like if they're a first time home buyer, if they've been pre-approved. Don't quite know. I would like kind of divert to the domain expert, right? They know some of the basic questions to ask in that intake form. All right. And then just being able to schedule. All right. So actually being able to schedule a call uh, with an agent. All right. So I can think of some out off the shelf software that would allow us just using their out of the box software and probably even some of their free versions to test this product out, right? So you have something simple like I said, a landing page. You have a simple form, and then maybe you have something a simple scheduling. It could be as simple as Calendly or Google or Zoom or like whatever it is. So maybe Zoom is what you use to actually you know uh, be on the call. Maybe you use Calendly or Google Calendar to allow them to book the consultation. All right, because what you're really testing is you're really, like I said, you're really testing the demand, and that's what I want to emphasize here. You're testing the fact that a problem exists. This is very problem oriented, and it's not as product oriented. Okay, so that's the use case of when we would want to actually build an MVP. Let's go over a use case where the answer might be we should build a prototype or full application. All right, so let's shift gears for a second. We talked about MVP. Let's talk about when the solution might be let's build a prototype or a full application. Okay, so this we're going to start off by talking about when you should not build an MVP. All right, when you should not. We talked about when you should build an MVP. Again, as a reminder, there's uncertainty. You need to validate. All right, let's go over when you should not build an MVP. The problem is already known. The users already exist. The solution is clearly defined. The tool is for internal or operational use. All right, in this case, validation is not the goal, execution is. Let's go back over that for a second. The goal here is execution. So the real question here is how should we build this product? Not if we should build this product. All right. MVP is answering, should we build this product? All right. Your prototype is answering the question of how should we build this product? You guys see the difference? Like even the way your brain is thinking about this is going to change, right? How should this how should this product look? How should we build this? Right? That's all about the execution versus should we even build this product to begin with? Is there demand for this product? All right, so let's go into use case B. All right, so this is going to be the use case where the prototype or custom build is recommended. All right, let's go over the scenario. All right, so a company already has internal software used by their team. They've identified a gap or inefficiency in the workflow and they want to build a new feature or system to fix it. All right, you guys already see how this is different. So they have some internal, and this is I'd say like for one of my clients that I'm building some custom software for, they fall right into this scenario. There's already some existing software, right? But there's gaps and inefficiencies with that software, right? And if there's gaps and inefficiencies in the workflow, and somehow what they need to operate their business, there's an inefficiency in it, all right? And they want to build new features or systems to fix the problem. All right. We've already validated the fact that there is a problem. We've already validated who the users are. We've already answered the question of, is this a big enough pain point that we should build this? All right. Let's go over what we already know. All right. So we know the problem exists. We know who the users are. We know how the tool will be used. And we know that the solution is necessary. So this is a big enough pain, right? That this company has come to me and said, hey, the current software we're using for our business is underperforming. And it's a big enough issue that we've come to you so that you can build new features or new systems because it's causing an inefficiency in our ability to operate our business. All right. That's very different than here's this concept that I have that I don't have evidence for this being a real problem. Okay, so there's no need to validate demand. It already exists. All right, in this scenario, we're not trying to validate demand. The demand already exists. All right, so this is where a prototype or custom application makes sense. So let's go over the goals here. So in this situation, here are the goals. Designing the right solution, improving efficiency, building something tailored to known needs, not testing the market. That's where you're getting your contrast, right? So you're not testing the market. We're figuring out how, like, how should we design this? That's like the big question I want to underline is how. What should it look like? How should it be designed? How do we improve efficiency? How do we build something that's tailored to the known needs, all right? So they come to us, for example, and they say, right now, every department is able to have access to all of the dashboards. That's an issue for us, right? We don't want our marketing department to have access to, I don't know, things that only executives should have access to. So how do we build a feature, right, that address this permissions challenge? All right. This isn't a situation where we're saying, hey, do we need to build new features that will address this? It's like, no, like this is a known problem. What we're trying to figure out is how do we develop the best design possible to solve this problem? All right. Cool. So I want to leave you guys with some simple rule of thumbs as far as when to build an MVP versus when to build a prototype. All right, let's go over the rule of thumbs as far as when to build an MVP. All right, so you should build an MVP when you're testing an idea. All right, um, you're unsure if people will use or pay for it. You need validation before investing more. Notice that all of these are questions around uncertainty and demand. All right. You don't have proof that users truly want this product yet. Right? You're testing the market. So those are the rule of thumbs as far as when to build an MVP. Let's go over the simple rule of thumbs as far as when to build a prototype or application. When the problem is already known, when the users are known, when the goal is execution, not validation. So when you need to like when the goal of the product is execution, we need to execute this really well, right? The problem is already known. Like we know that right now at this company, it's an issue that our, customer support can see, our marketing campaign dashboards. We know already that it's an issue that our marketing team can see things that only the executives, right? They've come to us because that is a problem. Now, how do we execute the best solution to address those problems? All right. That's when we're looking at prototype and full application. All right. So I want to leave you guys with some final takeaway. So the final takeaway, all right, MVP answers the question, should this product exist? All right. A full application answers the question, how do we build this the right way? All right. One more time. The MVP is going to answer, should this product exist? All right. And then our full application is going to answer the question of, how do we build this the right way? All right. How do we build this the correct way? All right. So knowing the difference saves time, money, and months of unnecessary development. All right. So I really wanted to make sure that I created this guide for you guys. If you guys want to get this guide, you can visit our website, go to free downloads, and then you can download this guide. And it'll walk you through answering these questions. All right. So I have customers come to me or clients come to me for different software needs, right? And just depending on if they already have proof of concept versus they want me to solve an existing problem, I may recommend that we start with the MVP versus us actually building a custom application. All right. I have a client right now. Um, again, I'm using the real estate example so I can protect, her app idea, right? Well, she's smart enough to know, hey, this is a new concept. I believe this is a problem, but I want to validate this problem. I want to validate that there's a problem. I want to validate that users are willing to pay for this and use this application before we build the full scale version, right? And now I have other clients who come to me and said, like, these are real problems. I need you to tell me how do we execute, building the solution to those problems. Very, very important, right? On which way I advise my clients to go, right? Whether we start with the MVP or this is like, okay, cool, let's build the prototype, let's build the full application. All right, guys. I hope this has been helpful. If you guys have any follow-up questions or if there's anything specifically that you want me to cover, just make sure you guys comment and let me know, and I'd be happy to do a video to address your questions and concerns. All right. In my next lecture, I'm gonna go over how we this is a little bit more on the marketing side of things, but it's the very technical SEO part. And it's going to cover how to go about doing, keyword research, and finding out. This is another way to kind of validate demand in a way to see what are users actually searching for in relationship to the product that you want to offer. All right, so that's what we're going to cover in our next lecture. So make sure you guys check that out. All right.